we went in at 9 million. The deal was like roughly a 6 cap at 9 mil. I think also we have to change down payment. Anyways, we felt like this was a good place to start just because our rate of return was obviously good. Our price per unit here is very, very good. We felt very confident we could take down this deal and make some great money, great returns for all of our investors. Our investors agreed. We presented the offer and they came back at 11 million bucks. They came back at 11 million. Here's what's gonna happen. There's only so many variables. They came back at 11 million bucks. So if we go back at 11 million, let's just put down $11 million here. A couple of things need to change. Number one, we would have to drop interest rate, and we would have to also try to keep a few things, because here's the problem, right? The implied value, which is what I really wanted to talk about today, the implied value at sale doesn't change. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, Will, about your deal, right? If we're looking at future value of this deal, if we just took, in a very rough number, by the way, is 14 million, okay? Which, by the way, I think would be, if we did, let's just take, because it's 70 units, future value, $200,000 per unit, 200 grand a door, 14 million roughly would be probably the highest this deal would ever sell for. In this marketplace, 200 grand a door is just where things are kind of trading at an absolute high. So if I'm looking at this deal and the seller's telling me 11 million bucks, there's only so many ways that I can make this deal happen, okay? Because obviously at 9 million, this number it's a way better deal. I have more of a spread. I'm buying it so much less than the future basis that I have, I have enough room where I'm going to make a very good profit where I can make sense of this deal all day long. At 11 million, the returns aren't as good. My cash on cash return at purchase is only a 4.5%. My cap rate at purchase is only a sub 5. Sub 5% purchases on these types of size multifamilies are typically like brand new construction. I mean, especially in my marketplace, it's very difficult for this deal to be done. So I'm trying to just show you guys where, like, if a seller wants too much, some things need to change. Where even if I got my interest rate, let's just say he needs $3 million down, because this is where we kind of started. Let's see if I can play with these numbers real quick. What would be $8 million divided into $11 million is 7272. So 72.72727. Enter. Okay, so that means I have a $3 million down payment. That's my financing structure. My cash on cash return didn't really change at all. Obviously, the cap's not going to change at all. That's connected to the price. But my IRR changed a little bit because my amount of money down was lowered. Okay, and obviously I'm still estimating I have $1 million worth of capital expenditures that I'm going to spend. Now, this $1 million is going to go to every bit of CapEx, and this is also going to go towards evictions and paying people out to leave. Okay, like cash for keys to get people to vacate. Even at a 4% interest, if a seller, because like some of you guys are like, oh, but the seller's willing to offer seller financing. They're open to doing seller financing at 4% interest. This could be a fantastic deal for somebody. Well, I'm doing the math, and this still doesn't make sense, because the price that they want is too high. Let's say we did 10 million. Nope, that's $1 million. That would be a fantastic deal. All right, 10 million bucks, right? We're just going to play around with the numbers a little bit. $10 million. Hold on. We got to change these numbers around, because now we have 10 million. Now we got to do a $7 million loan divided into, actually, that'd be 70%, obviously. That makes sense. Yeah, $3 million down. Obviously, I don't need a calculator for that. Okay, so $10 million. My cap rate is a 5.5. Now, look, again, the only real change that I'm doing here is that I have it at a 4% interest rate loan instead of 5%. Obviously, my implied value at sale does not change. Everything else is still just as conservative. Keep in mind that, again, my returns are growing, which is a plus. I want this to be in the mid-20s. Conservatively, right? Because I don't, I like to conservatively be in the ideally 30. That's my minimum. I like to, if I'm going to personally invest in this deal, I want it to be a 30, because if I screw up royally, it'll still be a mid-20s, maybe low 20s IRR, okay? Because I am definitely not perfect with everything, but I like to give myself some room, which I recommend a lot of people do. And this is the same thing your investor is going to do, by the way. So even with a debt service coverage ratio of 1.95, which is a very strong debt service coverage ratio, my cash on cash is still only 5.5%, which is taking my $3 million plus the $200,000 in closing costs, plus the $1 million out of pocket for renovations, capital expenditures, evictions, and cash for keys. I'm only making a 5.5% cash on cash return, and my price per unit is still a little bit on the high side. So I'm here to show you guys, like, even with seller financing at 4% interest only, it's not like this deal is a steal. Now, obviously, once we start going down to $9 million, at 4% interest, this starts making a lot more sense for me, right? I'm really liking this deal. I like this deal a lot. This is a deal that my goal was that I was probably going to flip this deal and try to make $500,000 bucks. okay? Because I think I can probably sell it for like 9.5. Internal, rates of returns look decent. I can pitch the return at a 26 to somebody else, where like this is what my investors would make if I bought the deal, right? My investors would make 21.85. I can pitch this deal at a 26 internal rate of return to another investor who's going to buy it, because that's what they would make if they bought the deal themselves. So I think that I could probably sell this deal all day long at 9.5. Let's flip this back to 5%. Yeah, so anyways, this was about where we were at, right? Anyways, this is going to give you some thoughts here, because a lot of what I'm hearing from people today is like, oh, well, this is like a great deal because the seller wants, is offering seller financing, 20% down, 30% down, 50% down. Guys, like seller financing is not the whole picture. It's a small part of the picture, and it definitely helps, but it's not the whole picture. So keep in mind that, like, hey guys, even if hypothetically they offered this deal at 80% seller financing, $10 million. In this instance, even if they were willing to do seller, let's say 80% seller financing at 5%, the problem is that they have a loan, I think, for $2.5 million. That's the problem here. So anytime you're dealing with a guy who's got seller financing, or is open to seller financing, keep in mind that you only have so much room to negotiate. If they have a loan on the deal, obviously if they have no loan, there's no issue. But if they have a loan on the deal, there's only so much we can do here. There's only so much we can handle, right? Or so much we can do here. Where I think it's important for us to be paying attention with this type of deal. When I'm trying to negotiate, they need to walk away with a certain amount of money. $3 million seemed to be their bottom line. Maybe I can get away with 2.8, 2.7, but it's like they're not going to think about it. If they have a $2.5 million loan, they're not going to walk away with $200,000 in their checking account and then sell you the building. And so just keep in mind, like when I'm negotiating these types of deals, the seller needs to be walking away with a healthy chunk of change. And they need to be offering an interest rate, like overall a loan to value and an interest rate that makes sense.